Do you feel like you have strong personal boundaries? Or do you notice that your boundaries are kind of fluid and you don't really feel confident in saying, this is my boundary and this you have crossed it? I want to talk about a way and that you can get really clear on your boundaries and also take you through one exercise that will actually help you feel and understand your personal boundary. So this is a pretty somatic technique, meaning that we are going to be feeling in our bodies what we're needing for as far as boundaries, okay? So I'm gonna take you through a few questions. And then also, I want you to have a piece of paper because you are going to do a little stick figure drawing. So you do not have to be a great drawer or anything, a great artist. This is literally a stick figure that you are going to draw. So I'm going to give you a moment, grab those things because I want to help you develop and understand where your personal boundaries are and actually give yourself a visual to create and to where you can post it to where you remember how to keep those boundaries really strong. Okay. So I'm going to just begin with kind of defining boundaries and why they're important. Okay. So boundaries help you define your personal space. They can be physical, emotional, verbal, behavioral, or even spiritual. So they can kind of be in any of these aspects of you and your life, in any realms of what it means to be you, okay? They can be strong, they can be very rigid, they can be loose, they can be open, they can be flexible, they can be distant, they can be close, they can be merged or they can be fluid. It all depends, right? And it depends on usually what kind of boundary you're talking about and also the person or thing or place that you are creating a boundary with, okay? There's also internal boundaries and external boundaries between you and other people. And this exercise is going to help you reflect on those boundaries so that you can get clear with what the boundaries are. Okay, so here we go. You have your piece of paper with you, a pen. And I just want you to first start by kind of reflecting on a couple questions I'm going to ask you, okay? So you can just jot down answers pretty quickly to these questions. How would you describe your personal boundaries in maybe a sentence? Do you feel like they're strong personal boundaries? Do you feel like they need some work? Do you feel like you have no personal boundaries and you're exhausted? So just kind of give yourself a moment to answer that question. How would you describe your personal boundaries? And then how can you tell where your personal space begins and ends? So how can you tell when you have that sense like, oh, somebody's coming too close into my personal space, right? We call it the bubble sometimes. Everybody's bubble is different, okay? So how can you tell? What are the little signs or triggers or feelings or sensations that you get when somebody's coming into your personal bubble or personal space? So write a few of those down. They could be like, you start feeling tense, right? You start feeling like you want to move away. You start feeling a little scared, or you start feeling like take it like what's the word I'm thinking? Oh, like penetrated, right? Like you're getting like they're getting too close. Like so yeah, noticing where the personal boundary, kind of how your body. I keep moving away, right? Because that's how I learn where my personal boundary is. I can notice where my bubble is depending on what my body is doing. So kind of put yourself in that situation and notice what your body does. Allow your body to show you what it does, right? That can give you a sign of how you, where your personal boundary is or where your personal space is. And again, how you feel in your body when somebody's coming too close, and or if you want somebody to come closer, that can be another kind of sign on where your personal boundary is. If you actually want somebody to come closer, you want them into your space, right? You want them to cross that boundary. So where does that boundary live? So now I want you to get that pen and think about the drawing again, because you already got your paper, you've kind of been writing stuff down. So I want you to, first of all, just create a little stick figure. So your little head, circle, body, line, arms, line across, 2 little legs, okay? That is you. That is you on this piece of paper. Now, I want you to draw a circle around you as far, and kind of give yourself like, okay, where about is your personal boundary space? So if you're in the center, if that little stick figure is you, where do you imagine the personal boundary is? Is it really close to the stick figure? Is it kind of big, like it's really encompassing? Does it take up the whole piece of paper? Like that's where your personal boundary is, okay? So kind of sit with that and just notice in general, this is a generalization. In general, where's your personal boundary? Now, another kind of fun thing to play with is imagine what color would your boundary be? If you can imagine a color, what color is that boundary? Okay? If you have colors, make the boundary the color. Make the circle the color that you think your boundary is. What material would your boundary be made out of? Okay? What kind of material? Is it like steel? Like a steel wall? Is it a wooden door? Is it a porous, like gate, like a chain link fence, right? Is it soft? Is it flexible? Can it be kind of pushed on? Just notice what comes up for you when you think of your personal boundary. And now I invite you, this last little part is who is allowed into your personal space, into that bubble, and who is not. Now, this is something that you can sit with and really feel into, okay, who are the people that I like in my bubble? So maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's your child, right? Maybe it's your dearest friend. It can be like certain family members, your dog, right? Your cat. Who's allowed in your personal bubble? What feels safe to be in that personal space, inside the circle? Now, I want you to think of who's outside the circle. Who don't you want kind of close in your boundary, inside your personal bubble? And just kind of list them. As you're drawing outside the circle, name the things you don't want inside your circle. Name the things that you do like inside your circle. In this process, you start to understand in a visual way what feels good as far as the boundary that you want to create around you. What you might have now, and then what you want it to be if it's not exactly what you desire, okay? So imagine that this boundary is yours to evolve into. It can change depending on who is around or what situation you're in. So I invite you to take this idea of personal boundary, take this idea of boundary, and play with not attaching it to a big generalization. So I know I started the whole video with asking, how do you feel about your personal boundaries, right? Like, what's going on there? If you feel like you have strong ones, if you feel like they're not that strong, oftentimes we'll generalize boundaries, or we'll generalize who we are. I hear things like, oh, I don't have great boundaries. I need to get better boundaries. What does that mean? And who are you actually talking about? What kind of boundaries do you want to create? So you can do this exercise by even thinking of one specific person or a family member. You put yourself in the middle and draw what kind of boundary you see around you that you want to have with that person right now. You can also say, oh, this is the boundary I have now. How do I want the boundary to look? So for example, you might struggle with opening up, right? Really having maybe emotional availability, or you want to open maybe your heart a little bit, right? I keep thinking of emotions, being a heart-led practitioner that I am. So maybe right now you feel like you have a steel wall around you and almost nobody can get in. And it's hard for your partner. It's hard to get close to people. Or maybe you don't have a partner, but you want one, but you want to have more emotional availability. How can you transform that boundary? What do you want that boundary to look like in the future, right? With somebody that you really trust and care for. So going from the steel wall to maybe the chain link fence, then to maybe the soft silk fabric, right? Allowing the boundary to constantly exist and knowing where it is and knowing how you want it to evolve within the inside of you and where your heart is. So go ahead and play with that. As you know, my name's Monique. This is Insights with Monique Gomez. I do coaching, education. You can find more about what I do at moniquegomez.com. And when you're there, make sure to sign up for my weekly newsletter called Raw. You can sign up, subscribe. That's where I share a lot more freebies, events, things that I got going on that are here to help you embrace your authentic, sensual self and stay curious and messy while you do it. Because that's what we're here for, to be human and to also incorporate body, mind, heart, and sensuality in the whole process. So again, it's moniquegomez.com. Check it out. If you like this channel, make sure to subscribe. If you want to leave a comment, that's cool too. Go enjoy, try this boundary practice, use your visualization. Get creative. It's part of it all. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time.